English Gyan. This is Shivashish Das. In this video, we shall come to know about the various figures of speech used in English language, which are very much useful as you will face many questions based on these figures of speech in different competitive exams such as the Central TET and the other exams. So, before starting, like this video and subscribe to my channel. So before progressing, we must know what is a figure of speech. So figure of speech is a figurative language which is used to draw a picture mentally to convey a message or idea quicker, effectively and vividly. Sometimes it so happens that we are not able to convey our ideas or our thoughts that much easily or that much quicker or that much vividly. It is not clear sometimes to the person who is receiving the information. So in order to make things better, we sometimes use some figures of speech in English so that the things become easier and the person is able to grasp the things easier, and it draws a picture mentally so that we get a clearer vision of that thing. So the first figure of speech that we are going to discuss is simile. So now let's have a look. What is simile? Simile is the comparison between two unlike things which have a common characteristic. Sometimes we compare two things which are totally unlike, which are totally different, but there is a common characteristic between them. This comparison is known as simile. Now let's have a look at the example. The man is as brave as a lion. Here I am comparing two things. I am comparing the man with a lion. We must remember that in simile we take the help of the words such as like, as and so. So here I am comparing the man with a lion. So it's very clear that these are two very different and unlike things, but I am comparing these two and I am taking the help of the word as. Now, why I am comparing these two things? I am comparing these two things because they have a common characteristic, that is, both of them are brave. I am comparing the bravery of that man to the bravery of a lion, and I mean to say that the man is so brave that he is just like a lion. So, I am comparing two unlike things because of a common characteristic between them, and I am taking the help of the word as. So, this is an example of simile. Now let's have a look at another example. The farmer works like an ox. Here I am comparing two things again. I am comparing the farmer with an ox. Again we see that these are two completely unlike things, but I am comparing them and I am taking the help of the word like to bring out their similarity. And what is the common characteristic between them? I am trying to say that the farmer works like an ox. I mean to say that we all know that an ox is a very hard-working animal, and I mean to say here that the farmer is also very hard-working, just like an ox. So here the idea is to bring out the common feature or the common characteristic between these two. So I am telling this. I am taking the help of like and comparing these two unlike things. And the last sentence is, the clouds are like balls of cotton. Here again I am comparing two things. I am comparing the clouds with balls of cotton. It is very clear to us that the clouds and the balls of cotton are completely unlike, completely different things. But I am again comparing these two unlike things by using the word like to bring out a common similarity between them. We must have seen that sometimes the clouds in the sky, they look like balls of cotton. They have a similarity in their looks. So that is why I am comparing the clouds with balls of cotton. So in these three sentences we see that the unlike things, two unlike things are compared by taking the help of words such as like, as and so to bring out a common characteristic, which is nothing but the use of the figure of speech simile. The next figure of speech on the list is metaphor. Metaphor is the comparison between two unlike things which have a common characteristic. Here again we see that just like simile, metaphor is also the comparison, and again it's the comparison between two unlike things having a common characteristic. But there is some difference between metaphor and simile. In metaphor, we don't take the help of the words such as like, as or so, but in simile, we took the help of words such as like, as and so. In metaphor, it is again the comparison between two unlike things so that we can bring in the common characteristic or quality between those things. Now let's have a look at the examples. Number one sentence is, Virat Kohli is a gem to Indian cricket. Here it is very clear that I am comparing Virat Kohli to a gem. We all know that Virat Kohli is a person and a gem is an object. These two things are very much unlike, but I am comparing these two things to bring out a common feature, that is their preciousness. A gem is very much precious and Virat Kohli is equally precious to Indian cricket. That is why to bring in their common characteristic, we are comparing these two things. But we must keep in mind that we have not used any of the three words like, as or so here. That is why it is a direct comparison. That's why we can say that the figure of speech metaphor is used here. In the second sentence, it's given that the camel is the ship of the desert. Here I am comparing the camel to the ship, because here two unlike things are used and they don't have anything similar, but they have a similar characteristic. The ship is used for transportation in many places on water bodies, and similarly the camel is used in deserts for transportation. People use it as a means of communication, as a means of traveling. So the camel is serving the purpose which the ship serves on water. So here the common characteristic of both these things is the ability to transport people from one place to another. That is why to bring in their common characteristic, we have compared these two, but I am again not taking the help of like, as or so. So this is not a simile, this is a metaphor. And the last sentence is, this person is a headache to the society. Here I am talking about a person who must be creating very much problem to his society. So we are comparing this person to a headache. So it is very clear that a person and headache are very unlike things. These are not similar things, but again a comparison is drawn between them to bring in their common feature. Like a headache gives us pain. There are some people in our society who give pain to us, who are antisocial. So here a person is being compared to a headache because of a common characteristic between these two things, that is this person and a headache, and the common characteristic is some kind of irritation or some kind of pain. So here again two unlike things are compared, but we have not taken the help of the word like, as or so. So this is an example of a metaphor. Number 3 on the list is personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which human qualities are given to non-human objects or ideas. Sometimes we see that while talking about any non-human thing or idea, we give some human qualities or human attributes to those things. This is the use of personification. Let's see the example to understand it better. The first sentence is, the sun smiled at us. Here we are talking about a very beautiful morning in which the sun is shining very brightly, and the sun is shining so brightly that it seems that it is smiling at us. So we all know that the sun cannot smile. Smiling is done by human beings generally. So we are giving a human quality of smiling to a non-human object to bring out the idea better. This is the use of personification. Let's see another sentence. The lonely road stared at me. Here I am talking about a road which is very lonely, in which there is no crowd. It is very empty, and that road is so lonely that it seems that it is staring at me. It is looking at me fixedly. Sometimes while going through or walking on a very lonely road, it feels that the road is looking at us, the road is staring at us. Here I am giving the human quality of staring, human quality of looking at something to a non-human thing, which is the use of personification. The next sentence is, the flowers are dancing in the breeze. This is a very beautiful sight, is not it? Many a times we have seen that whenever there is a nice breeze around, the flowers, these seem like dancing. Here we have given the quality of dancing, the human quality of dancing to non-human objects, that is flowers, which is again a use of the figure of speech personification. So the next one on the list is hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech in which we exaggerate or overstate things to express something clearly and impactfully. It sometimes happens that whenever we try to state a fact or whenever we try to talk about something, in order to express its magnitude or in order to express its effect or impact, we sometimes overstate or overdo things. Like if I say that I have lots of work to do, many works to do, we sometimes say that I have hundreds of works to do. It doesn't mean that I exactly have 100 works to do, but I mean to say that I have many works to do. So sometimes we exaggerate or overdo things, and this figure of speech is known as hyperbole. Now let's have a look at the examples. The first sentence is, her eyes are brighter than the sun. Here I am saying, or here I am referring to the eyes of a girl, and I mean to say that her eyes are so bright that these are brighter than the sun. Now we know that the eyes of human beings cannot be brighter than the sun. It is overstating or exaggerating the facts, but I just mean to say that her eyes are so bright that these are brighter than the sun. So I am exaggerating or overdoing the things here. So this figure of speech is known as hyperbole. The second one is 10,000 saw I at a glance. This sentence is a very famous line from a very famous poem, The Daffodils by William Wordsworth. Here, in this line, he was referring about the daffodils. He was saying that he saw many daffodils at one glance. At one look, he saw many daffodils, and in order to express the number of daffodils, in order to express the magnitude of the number of daffodils, he used the word 10,000, but it doesn't actually mean that he saw exactly 10,000 daffodils. He means to say that he saw many daffodils at one go. So here again we see that exaggerating the facts is done here, and this exaggeration is hyperbole. Okay, and the last sentence, her grandmother is taller than the mountains. Here I am talking about an old lady, someone's grandmother. She's very tall. And in order to express her, in order to convey the idea that she is very tall, we are taking the help of exaggeration. We are saying that she is taller than the mountains. We all know that mountains are very tall, but she is even taller than the mountains. This is actually not true. It cannot happen. This is impractical. But in order to express her, in order to express the tallness of that lady, of that grandmother, we are saying that she is even taller than the mountains, which is again the exaggeration of facts. So this is again hyperbole. An interesting fact in two of these sentences is that in the first sentence we have compared her eyes with the sun. We are comparing two unlike things because they have a common characteristic, which is an example of metaphor, because I have not used the words such as like, as, or so. So this is also an example of metaphor. Similarly, the last sentence, I am comparing her grandmother with the mountains. Again, I am comparing two unlike things because they have a similar quality. And this is again, we have not used the words such as like, as, or so. So this is again also an example of metaphor. The next figure of speech is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech which contains words which contradict each other. Sometimes we say that in many sentences, two words are placed side by side which are opposite in their meaning, but they are placed or used in such a way to give a comic effect to the sentence or to give a better impact to the sentence. So now let's have a look at the example to understand this thing better. The first sentence is, it is an open secret. So in this sentence we see that two words, open and secret, they are placed side by side, which are actually quite opposite to each other in meaning. Secret is something that is hidden, that is unknown to all, it is somewhat closed, and open is something that is exposed to everyone, which is open to everyone, about which everyone knows. So these two words basically they contradict each other, they are actually opposite to each other, but they are used in such a way to give the meaning that we are talking about a sentence about which everyone is aware of. We are talking about a secret about which everyone knows. So this is an example of oxymoron. Another example is he is clearly confused. I am talking about a person who is confused and he is very much clear about his confusion. Means he knows that he is confused. So again I am using two words, confused and clearly. These two words are actually contradictory to each other. They are quite opposite to each other, because if a person is confused, he is not clear about that thing, he is not enlightened about that thing. But if a person is clear about a thing, if a person is enlightened about a thing, he is not confused. So here we see that two opposite words are used side by side to provide a good effect to the sentence. And the last sentence is, all the leaders agreed to disagree. This is a very interesting sentence. Here we see that we are talking about some leaders. Those leaders, all of them agreed, but they agreed that they will disagree. It is very common in our field, it is very common in our country. Many people agree to disagree. So here we see that agree and disagree, these are two contradictory words, and they are used placed side by side to give a proper meaning to the sentence. So this is oxymoron, when two or more words which are contradictory to each other are placed in a sentence to give a proper meaning. And the last one on the list today is alliteration. Alliteration is a figure of speech in which there is a repetition of consonant sounds, especially at the beginning of the words. Many times we have seen that in certain sentences there is a repetition of certain consonant sounds to give a poetic impact or give a rhythmic impact. So this figure of speech which is used is known as alliteration. So let's have a look at the examples. So the first sentence is, don't drink and drive. It's a very common sentence and we have seen it many times on the roads, which is used by the traffic police to create awareness. So here we see that the consonant sound D is used repeatedly. Not if it's been used, do not drink and drive. Here we see that the sound D has been used thrice at the beginning of the words, and it's also been used at the end of the word D. So here we see that the consonant sound is being repeated again and again, and it's an example of alliteration. The second sentence is also a very famous one, and it's like a tongue twister also. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Here we see that very clearly, we can see that the consonant sound P is used again and again, and it is used at the start of the word. So this is an example of alliteration. That is, we see that the consonant sounds are repeated again and again in a single sentence. I hope you liked the video. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Stay tuned and thank you.